In today's video, we'll be taking a look at a hypothetical 2024 presidential election prediction, this time between Joe Biden, the incumbent president of the United States, and a hypothetical jail Donald Trump as the Republican. Now, the U.S. Constitution does not allow any individual convicted on a federal crime of actually running for office, but the U.S. Constitution grants full permission for an individual convicted of a state crime to still run for office. In fact, that has happened before. Previously, Eugene Debs ran for office, the presidential office, behind bars on a 10-year sentence in his conviction. Obviously, he was nowhere close to winning the election, falling short of 5% of the popular vote. Nonetheless, the U.S. Constitution allows any defendant convicted of a state crime to run for the office. In fact, you could technically be on death row and still end up winning the presidential election office. But without further ado, let's get right into today's video. Now, this is a very large if Trump is convicted on a state charge and is able and still wins the Republican nomination and ends up winning and end up being on the ballot for the election. Now let's start off with jail Donald Trump's likely Republican states, Alaska, South Carolina, but though both of these states were not safe states for Donald Trump there in 2020, I still believe if Donald Trump is actually behind bars, he's still going to win both of those states without any consequences. Now going to Joe Biden's likely states, he has a lot because, again, people, especially voters, are just not going to be interested, generally speaking, voted for a jailed candidate. Joe Biden will win the generic likely state of the state of Maine. He's probably going to win by substantial margin as well. The state of New Hampshire here also voted for Joe Biden by 7 points in 2020. He's obviously going to win states he won by likely margin in 2020, as in this hypothetical 2024 election prediction as well as that the state of Minnesota voted for Joe Biden by 7 in 2020. Going to vote for him in this hypothetical. Now, finally, I also think that the state of Michigan will vote for Joe Biden. He did win the state by 2.8 points in 2020. It makes a lot of sense that if Trump ends up being jailed, that Joe Biden can overrun his performance in 2020 by just 2.2 points. That's not particularly challenging. I do believe Joe Biden will, in this scenario, win the state of Michigan by a likely margin. Now let's go to Donald Trump's lead states in this hypothetical. First off, in the states of Iowa and Ohio, both of these states voted for Donald Trump here by 8% in 2020. Remarkably good performances for the former president, as Donald Trump, again, his predecessors, many of these Republicans, these two states back in the early 2000s even, were considered bellwether states, especially the state of Ohio, voted for the right presidential election winner, was the bellwether state for 60 years before Trump won the state by 8 in 2020, while simultaneously losing the presidential election. Now, in the state of Ohio, he did win by 8, as well as that in the state of Iowa, he won by 8. In both of these states, he was able to do very well in the working class. I think the working class will probably still end up voting for him, even if he ends up going behind bars. Now going to Joe Biden's lead states, we're going to see a lot of them. First off, in the state of Nevada, voted for Joe Biden by 2.4 points. Not going to be challenging for him to win in this hypothetical prediction. Now going to the state of Arizona, this is also a state that I think Joe Biden should be able to win. Again, if he won the state in 2020 and Trump in this hypothetical is actually behind bars, well, it's pretty obvious that Joe Biden's going to be able to win that state. Now going to see Georgia. Georgia's a heavily trending blue state. It's a state that voted for Joe Biden in 2020, despite voting for Trump by more than 5 points in 2016. It makes sense that someone like Joe Biden's probably going to end up winning the state of Georgia in this hypothetical. It goes without saying that Nebraska's second will obviously also be in the Joe Biden column. He has already surpassed the 270 electoral votes needed to become the president of the United States. But we're going to continue here. Going to the state of North Carolina, this is a state that obviously Trump was able to win in 2020. Nonetheless, this was still a pretty narrow margin of 1.3 percentage points, and it's a state that's generally regarded as more static, if not trending to the Democratic Party, and Democrats have seen some substantial gains in some of the Charlotte metropolitan regions, as well as counties like Wake County, which is where Raleigh is located in the state. These are areas that are urban slash suburban that are trending to the Democratic Party. So I do think that these areas in this hypothetical obviously going to trend to Joe Biden. Again, these voters are probably not going to prefer someone to serve as president while simultaneously being in jail. Now going to the state of Wisconsin here, Joe Biden was able to flip the state in 2020, one of his 5 flips in the election. The state of Wisconsin narrowly voted for Joe Biden in 2020, and I think this case, the state will be pretty much a coin toss if Trump is the nominee and not behind bars. I'd actually say that Trump is favored because the state, again, Trump was able to do very, very well in the rural areas, though he pretty much underperformed in the national average by about 2 points compared to 2016. He was still able to do very well in some of these cases, overperforming his 2016 margin in the rural regions, especially in Ron Kind's district over here. And he lost some ground in the wild counties, but nonetheless still a very impressive margin and a very impressive performance for a Republican in a traditionally more Democratic leaning state. Now, in this scenario, obviously Joe Biden's going to win the state of Wisconsin, and he's also going to win the state of Pennsylvania because he won the state in 2020, and this hypothetical Trump is being jailed. So, Joe Biden's going to also win that state. Now, going to Maine's 2nd congressional district, I think Trump is probably going to still hold on to that district. It is a district that voted for Trump by 7 points in 2020. Now we have 2 remaining states. Let's start off with the state of Florida. Florida only voted for Trump by 3.3 points. I say only because it's not necessarily the most significant margin, but when you think about it, this is a state. For example, in 2000, George W. Bush won by just 537 votes in the state of Florida, which is an extremely tiny amount, considering there were more than 5 million votes cast. In fact, in 2020, there were more than 10 million votes cast in the state. And the state has become remarkably more Republican-leaning, specifically because of the counties that are closer to bordering Cuba, and especially these Hispanic voters have trended away from the Democratic Party and towards the Republicans. Miami-Dade County, the largest county by far in the state by population, trended 22 points towards the Republican Party from a county that Hillary Clinton netted around 300,000 votes in, a county that Hillary won by 30 points, to a county that Joe Biden only won by less than 100,000 votes in, a county that Joe Biden won by single digits, only about 7 percentage points. This is a state that I believe, because of the substantial amount of voters in the state that actually live in the rural regions, for example, Lee County, Collier County, Henry County, these are counties that are heavily Republican-leaning, and these are counties that actually have substantial populations. And I think that those are areas that will ultimately still carry Trump to victory across the state, even if he is jailed. Now, the same can't be said for Texas. Florida is indisputably trending red. I think Texas is indisputably trending blue. We look at some of the trends here. You see a sea of red right here. You see a lot of arrows trending red, but these are some of the so these are very small counties in terms of population. For example, Kennedy County trended 40 points to the Republicans. This was a county that pretty much that was very competitive in 2016, voted for Trump by more than 30 points. In fact, this was a county that voted for Hillary Clinton. The problem is there's a total of less than 200 votes in this county. So these are some of the counties that won't actually matter electorally. Though these look like a very impressive performances for Trump, which they are, these just don't matter as much as counties like, for example, Dallas, Tarrant County, that these counties, for example, the Dallas County region, these counties have a combined vote count in 2020 of about 2 million votes, if not more. And these are counties that truly matter in an election, and these are areas that will be trending blue regardless if Trump is jailed or not. But if he is jailed, obviously, Democrats will have much better sweeping performances across the state. And ultimately, if Trump is jailed, I actually believe Democrats especially Joe Biden, I do believe he will win the state of Texas in this hypothetical. So thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.